All right, so let's get into the word. Today we are in Mark chapter 3, actually the last little bit of Mark chapter 2 and Mark chapter 3, and also you can read it in Matthew chapter 12. So it's there's two big parts I want to talk about today, and the first is the Lord of the Sabbath. And this is the time when Jesus and his disciples, they're walking through a grain field and they pull off a head of grain, and it sends everybody in an uproar because they are working on the Sabbath. And then they go into the synagogue, and there's a man with a shriveled up hand, and Jesus tells him to extend it, and when he extends it, his hand is healed. And so they are the Pharisees and their scribes. They are just all up in arms because Jesus is working on the Sabbath day. But here's the truth about that, is that Jesus is not breaking any laws. What he is breaking is their traditions that they have set up that are supposed to safeguard this, and they've turned the Sabbath into a bunch of rules and lists and regulations instead of rest in what it truly was. They've turned it into, instead of really loving Jesus and loving others well on this day, it's focused on man-made rules and being right. And that's not what Sabbath is about. Sabbath looks the way Sabbath needs to look for you. It says that the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. He is the giver of rest. And so for you, what does that day look like? It should look different, of course, than any other day. It should definitely have a different vibe about it. I've heard kind of this like rule of thumb, or this way to think about it. If you work with your hands, then Sabbath with your mind. If you work with your mind, then Sabbath with your hands. In other words, the day should feel different, should look different. What do you enjoy doing? If you enjoy going on a walk, go on a walk. If that brings you rest, if it brings you rejuvenation, if it connects you with Jesus, if that feels like that's what you do for exercise on a daily basis, and you don't want to do that, then take a rest. If it is restful for you to get in your kitchen and do a little meal prep, so that you then do that. If it's like, oh, you cook all the time, then hey, I'm meal prepping for my Sabbath, so I don't have to be in the kitchen on. So what feeds your soul in your time with the Lord? What gives you time with? The goal is really to have this opportunity with Jesus where you're getting this rest, where you are rejuvenating, where you are remembering who you are in Him, and you are able to work from rest, not for rest. So you're setting yourself up to go then into your work week or a period of work, okay? So that is one thing that is talked about. That's the beginning of Mark chapter 3 and Matthew chapter 12. Then we get into this part a little bit down, and it says, Jesus went up to the mountain, and he summoned those that he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed the 12, whom he named as apostles, to be with him and to send them out to preach and have authority. Those few verses are packed. Number one, so we have already seen that one of Jesus's rhythms is Sabbath, but Sabbathing in a way that loves God and loves others. The other thing that we see a rhythm in his life is this idea of going to the mountain, going up, elevating to the mountain so that he can be alone with God. But in this situation, I love this. Jesus goes to the mountain, so he's an example. And then he summons those he wanted. He calls to himself those he wanted. Guess what, y'all? We are part of the wanted. He wanted us. He called us. He's calling us to himself. I am wanted. You are wanted. And they responded. They came to him. Okay, that's beautiful right there. God is calling you. He's summoning you up to come up to a higher place with him, to the mountaintop. And are you going to respond and go to him? And then he He appointed them. And that word appointed, if you look it up in the original language, it means to make something. He made them. And I love that because we have all the verses about he makes all things new, that, that God, he didn't just appoint them and give them and say, hey, I want you, this is your job. And no, it's literally making them into. He's making them into apostles. But how did he do that? Number one, it says to be with him. So before they do anything, they are to be with him, allowing him to remind them of his love, to refuel them with his power, to refresh them with his presence. Like, be with him first. That's why I love to start my day in the Word, because I want to be with him first. Right here, it shows us the importance of that. Listen, maybe you do better and you enjoy reading the Bible better in the evening and you get more out of it, or maybe you do a midday something. But I encourage you, take at least 5, 10, 15 minutes right when you wake up to spend with him in the Word, reading one verse, meditating on it, worshiping him, praying. Be with him first. And quality over quantity. Have quality minutes with him right when you wake up. And then he sent them out. Okay, so from that time of rest in his presence, resting isn't just sleep. Rest and sleep aren't the same thing. Resting in his presence, being with him, Sabbathing, finding the first few minutes of your day. Rest is all throughout our lifestyle that God has set up for us, that Jesus demonstrated for us. They sent him out to preach, to share the good news, and to have authority. To walk in authority. As a child of God, we get to work from rest. We get to be with him. We are sent out by him, so we're empowered by him and we have authority because we are part of this kingdom of God. That our daddy is the king, and because of that, we have the authority. He gives us the keys to the kingdom. And so walk and move and act in that authority today. And what a gift that is. So thanks for spending some time with me in the Word. Now you go check out these scriptures for yourself and be in the Word. Be with him first.